So a lot of IT and software vendors are completely invisible on YouTube. They're struggling to find new audiences, and even the biggest brands can't get more than a couple of hundred views per video. You can see this for yourself on YouTube. Often when you search for a particular piece of software, you'll see loads of videos from other creators featuring their products in their videos, and they'll be getting hundreds and thousands of views. But the actual vendor's channel, the company that makes the product, is buried somewhere down in the results or completely invisible. And this kind of hits quite close to home for me because my background is actually in IT and tech. So I've worked with a lot of these platforms, I've worked with a lot of these companies, so I understand the tech and I understand the industry, and I can also see why they're not getting any traction on YouTube. So let's take a look at the type of channels I'm talking about. These are all fairly big name IT brands. They produce software that underpins IT infrastructure across the world. But when we look at how their videos are performing on YouTube, some of them are barely getting over 100 views. So there's three main areas I think is responsible for this, and we're going to cover those in this video and show you how to fix it. So the first thing that's really apparent with all of these channels is their general positioning. What comes across straight away with all of them is that they're treating YouTube like it's their LinkedIn profile. So their whole channel is just dedicated to showcasing their product. And I think this comes down to a fundamental question which these channels need to ask themselves, which is, what are they trying to achieve with YouTube? So I think businesses end up doing one of two things with YouTube. They either treat it like a content library just to create video resources for their customers, or they want to build community and discover new audiences. And the problem is most businesses are doing both, or they're creating a content library and expecting that to achieve growth. But that's where there's a misalignment, because if you're trying to create growth, then you need to be attracting a cold audience. And in order to do that, you need to start thinking more like a content creator and start thinking value first content. So if the purpose of your channel is to attract a new audience, then that audience isn't necessarily going to be familiar with your product yet. So you pushing out a load of videos about feature updates and your latest releases isn't going to land with that audience. Successful content creators don't start out just by making videos about a particular product or service. They identify the audience, they identify who they're speaking to, and they speak to their problems and their struggles, and they make content aligned with that. And this is what software vendor channels just fail to do. They simply just make content about their own product. They're not identifying with the struggles and the problems of their audience. So that's not to say you can never publish anything about your product on your YouTube channel, but you need to be telling a story that speaks to the audience's problems rather than just flexing your product. So this comes down to the core messaging of your channel. You need to remember that the people you're trying to attract to watch your videos are not familiar with your product yet. So rather than just making informative videos or tutorials or feature releases, try and make more problem-aligned content and interest-aligned content. The second mistake I see most vendor IT channels making is the content itself, the structure. I'm going to be really blunt here. Most of it comes across like a conference talk. And I totally get that. Most of the people making the content for these channels are technical people. They're not content creators, and their background is probably in giving conference talks. It's my background as well. A few years ago, I was on the conference circuit giving talks, and it's natural for that style to bleed over into your videos, but people don't come onto YouTube to watch a conference talk. In a conference, you can get away with a lot more. You can have your long intro. People have actually walked into a conference room, sat down on a seat, and they're watching you. And in a conference, there's a lot more friction to get up and leave than on YouTube. In YouTube, if someone feels like they're not getting value in the first 10 seconds of your video, they're just swiping off. So what I see time and time again with the way these videos are presented is so much like a conference talk. We've got a slide deck on one side, we've got a talking head on another, and it begins with an introduction about who the speaker is, about their qualifications, and then goes on for a full minute about what we're going to be talking about. So like I say, that works in a conference talk. There's a lot more friction for people to get up and leave. I personally don't like that in a conference talk, but you can get away with it. On YouTube, your primary goal is to gain the viewer's trust within the first few seconds of the video, because that's the only way they're going to hang around and watch the rest. We don't need to be told who you are, what your qualifications are, or what we're going to be talking about in 10 minutes. We need to be talking about it now and delivering value now. So it can feel really harsh, but one thing you need to do with these videos is edit them down so you're just delivering upfront value and delivering the key points that you need to get across. So your positioning needs to be working on your core messaging and what you're talking about. Your editing choices need to cut out all the fluff and just make sure that you're delivering value. And the third thing that we need to talk about with these IT and software channels is their titles and thumbnails. When we look across all of these channels, they have the same thing in common. They're boring, they look the same, they don't tell me anything, they're just a bunch of words words on a corporate background. And this is something I see with a lot of brands, especially IT brands, with this obsession to keep everything corporate. So all the thumbnails look the same under this guise of corporate branding, and that may work on LinkedIn, I would doubt that, but it certainly doesn't work on YouTube. We're not using thumbnails to create some beautiful Instagram grid. We're creating a thumbnail to try and get a viewer to click on your video. So in the YouTube world, we refer to title and thumbnail as packaging, and the packaging is so important and it's also so overlooked. So I've talked about where your positioning should be for your video and how you should edit your videos and what content you should put in your videos, but before we even get there, you need to get past this first stage. You need to convince a random stranger on the internet who hasn't heard of your product to click on your video, and the only resources you have to do that is the title and thumbnail. So you've got just split seconds to get them to make that decision to choose your video over the other 6 that's on the home feed right now. And what most vendor channels are doing is just taking the title of their video, adding that to the thumbnail in a nicer font, and then splashing on some corporate branding. So instead of that, you need to start putting yourself in the position of the viewer, of the cold audience. What's going to make them want to click on your video? The title and the thumbnail shouldn't be a duplicate of each other. They should be in harmony. They should be doing a kind of dance together. Your title and your thumbnail together should invoke some curiosity. So that is arguably the most important thing I would change when it comes to these channels, is making sure you're telling a story with your packaging. I think the thing to note with all 3 things that we've just talked about, so the positioning and messaging of your channel, how you're structuring and editing your content, and how you're packaging that content, these are all key things that successful content creators do. And I think this is the biggest disconnect, especially with IT and software brands when it comes to YouTube. They're thinking too much inwardly like a product marketer when they should be thinking more like a content creator. So hopefully that's been some useful tips. If you're interested in diving a lot deeper into that and working with me, then my details are in the description. In the meantime, see you next time.